All right, we're live. Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday evening. Welcome to everybody. My usual partners in crime, Joe from On a Vinyl, or is that Ace on vacation? I don't know. And then we have Daryl at Northern Vinyl Guy, and our special guest this week, Brian from Embryonic Robot. Welcome, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Good.
Good.
Yes, just
Right.
to explain my costume. And if you have to explain your costume, is it very good? I don't know if it's very good if you have to explain it. But regardless, this is Ace Frehley on vacation because you can see he's got his bucket hat on in Canada because he's a hoser. So that it's a conceptual Halloween costume, but it's what I could throw together. And I do have my bubbling cauldron lights going tonight, and that's the Los Muertos going on the nano leaves as well. So the Day of the Dead. So I'm trying. I'm not maybe necessarily trying hard. And Ace Frehley probably needs his friggin' glasses on because he can't see, but that would look really stupid. So I'm just gonna go by what I hear from you guys tonight. I might not see everything. So
Well, there you go. Welcome, Chris. How you doing, man? And Tim and Trevor. Welcome, everybody.
yeah.
Joe took the extra initiative tonight to dress up for Halloween, and the other three of us dressed up as guys on YouTube. So,
Yeah.
so. You guys all ready for Halloween? Brian's got some exciting plans. He's going to sit on his front porch, drink wine, and throw candy at children.
That's right.
You get a lot of kids where you are?
Too many.
Too many?
Yeah, but Cecile's going to be taking them out, and I just get the job of sitting on my ass, really. So that's okay
Nice.
with me. Yeah.
Nice.
That's good.
And what about you, Daryl? I mean, you're not exactly in a bustling metropolis up there. You get a lot of kids?
Well, I usually get around 30 to 50 kids.
Oh,
About
that's
the same
not
as
bad.
me. Yeah.
That's not too bad.
And Joe, any big Halloween plans?
No, I used to go a little crazier with the decorations, but I bought new lights. Remember the lights that didn't
I
work?
remember
a
the
while
light
ago?
fiasco.
So
Yes.
those are going. I've got the inflatable ghosts going. I've got the light up ghosts going. Tomorrow night, not tonight, but tomorrow night, I've got the music that'll be playing outside and the lights will go to it. So we get about 5 to 10 kids. So it's all for me. Except doing it for nobody else but myself. So
Are you gonna
I've
play
got friends
Kiss?
though. And I've
Are you
got,
gonna play Kiss and scare the children away?
that's right, exactly. Gene's gonna jump out and go, "Give me your money." Um, I've got friends in Saskatoon. They get 500 plus kids every year.
Holy
They're-
shit!
They're in one of those streets. You know where you used to go to the people that had good stuff? They're the people that have the good stuff along with all their neighbors. So yeah, but she loves it. She gets out there and has a good time with it. So, but yeah, I don't know if I could do 500. I'd like to have more than 5 or 10, but I don't know. I certainly don't think I could do. Yeah, that's what I. Yeah, it's a Mexican wrestler, Ace Frehley on vacation in Canada. Whatever you like.
Well, that's
I
the
don't
first
think
thing
I could do 500, but
That's the first thing I said to Joe when we were backstage before we went live. I said, "Are you supposed to be a Mexican wrestler?" He goes, "No, I'm Ace from Kiss." And I went, "Oh, okay."
yeah,
So-
you see, you got to see
There you
the
go.
yeah.
I got it immediately, so that's all I can say.
Brian got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You wouldn't know Kiss if it hit you in the face anyway, Rob. So you know.
I haven't been kissed in the face in a very long time. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to Halloween. I got my 8-year-old, and he just got home from karate class. They had a Halloween party at karate class, and I always, as I was telling these guys earlier, I always get dressed up with my son because I love Halloween. So he and I are excited about getting dressed up. We live in a suburb type area of the city that I'm in, and there's a school like 12 houses down the street, but we're in this weird little pocket that all around us is old people, which I love because I'm one of those get off my lawn like 70-year-old guys. I'm one of those
Yeah.
people. So not a lot of kids on our street, but if you go down the street and over to the next block, there's a shit ton of kids over there. And if you go up the street about 2 blocks, there's a shit ton of kids up there. So we're going to go up the street this year because there's a few houses that are decorated amazingly. We decorate too. It looks pretty good, but there's a house up the street that takes him like a month to put up all the decorations. And my son's afraid to go to it. Like he's got these giant, like 16-foot tall skeletons. It looks like their heads are on fire. And it's awesome. I can't wait.
That's great.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I like Halloween more than Christmas and Thanksgiving put together. So.
Oh yeah. If a guy had the money, I mean, unfortunately, you have the chance of your stuff getting snowed on here, but still, it's a blast. It's fun to do. Like I said, it'd be nice if there was a few more kids around to see it, but that's okay. That's all right.
So we get like 30 to 50 kids usually. And my wife bought a bag of, it's got like Tootsie Rolls and Jubes and, that kind of shit in it. And there's like 150 pieces in that. And I said to myself, that's not enough. And I went out and bought 2 boxes of like 75 chocolate bars. Made the mistake of doing that last weekend. I might have to go to the store tomorrow because let's just say there's the amount of candy in those 3 containers have dwindled significantly, and I don't know what happened to them. So as I say that, as there's Tootsie Rolls sitting on my desk. So
yeah, we usually we get sometimes like 100 kids, so we have to buy a lot. So then as the night goes on, I get fewer and fewer. Like I start with multiple candies, and it goes down to like 1 at 9 o'clock.
We start off giving like one, and at the end, as it gets draws on, and we still have a shit ton left, and we give out more because I'm not allowed to keep it. So
yeah, well that makes sense.
We'll see what happens. Anything exciting happened in the last week, fellas? Anything music or other? How's the store, Joe? You did your first evening opening.
Yeah, we did our first Tuesday night. There was a few people in. You got to put it out there. You got to see what works because we're not able to do a Saturday this month. So we tried a Tuesday night, and it was okay. So yeah, it was all right. Better than not. I mean, if we weren't there, the people that did come in maybe wouldn't have had a chance. So we're gonna keep trying to have one or two of those off-hour times versus the 9 to 5 that the store is normally open because there's just lots of people that can't make it. But a couple new people again last night. So as long as some new people keep coming, then it's a good thing. So,
well, as you and I were texting last night, next time you got to live stream.
Yeah,
and I'll jump on with you, and we'll talk about shit as people come in and buy records, and we get people to walk in the store to say hi on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. I did a little bit of a test after we talked about it, and yeah, it'll work really well. So. Yeah. That's the plan for next time is we'll do that. So I also I had a couple customers asking for some record store date stuff today. And I think I talked about it. I'm not going to bring a bunch in because I don't want to get stuck with a whole bunch of albums that are just going to sit there and not go. So, I mean, I guess that's up to me to buy properly. But all you have to do is you have to sign a record store day pledge. At least I believe that's all that you have to do. Which then allows you to buy from our distribution the record store day titles. And the pledge really is just you won't overprice it, like you won't try and charge some exuberant amount because you've got them. You can't sell online. I think eventually you can sell them online, but it's got to be a certain time frame before you can put them up online. You just have to sell them to your customers at a fair price, and away you go. I think that's what the record store day pledge is, and I think that's all I have to do it. So I'm going to have some titles. I'm not going to go crazy. And then we'll do something special for the day for sure. And if nothing else, we'll just call it, it's always record store day here at On a Vinyl, right? Or whatever. We'll word it that way, but I'm not going to bring a bunch of stuff in it. I can't see it working for right now. And I shouldn't say that. I'm going to special order. So people will be able to know that, hey, if you want the record store day title, let me know and I'll definitely have it here for you. But I'm not going to get a bunch of stuff that I don't know is just going to not sell at some point. So
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so. Guy asked specifically today, there's a couple different iterations because it's the 35th anniversary of Dr. Feelgood. So there's a 3-album version. And then there's also a version which is all 7-inch singles, one of those deals. And I think they're both priced the same. It just depends if you want to screw around with 7-inch singles or you want 3 albums. Which probably will have outtakes and live and the rest that they do with those 3 albums. But I don't know. It's my cost is near the 200 mark. Like at our regular markup, which I think is always fair. We're going to be at like the 225, 235 mark for these things, and I'm not sure Dr. Phil gets a good album, but I'm pretty sure even as a triple album, I personally would be hard pressed, and I love that album. It's a great album, but I'd be hard pressed to be putting out 2 1/4. So I don't know where that came from. If that came from the record label, or if that came from crew trying to get just as much as they can before it's done. Get the last hurrah of people spending money on Motley Crue stuff. I don't know, but we'll see. Anyway, that's what's going on. So.
Well, on the subject of Record Store Day, not that we ever did much about it, is there anything on Record Store Day that you guys are pumped about this year?
It's a good question. I did look at the list, and I guess nothing stood out for me because I don't have anything in my brain right now about Record Store Day. So I will look again, but there was nothing that was a must have. Let me just put it that way.
Daryl, Record Store Day is a little harder for you. Is there anything you're going to look for online later or anything?
Well, the only one that stood out to me was the one that Joe was just talking about. And now that he's mentioned that price tag, I'm pretty sure that's crossed off my list.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I might as well just go and buy an original copy of that Dr. Feelgood album. Probably save $100.
Yeah. And again, we don't put a whole bunch on. And like I said, I'm probably going to retail at it at like about 2 1/4. Even for us buying it, it's a silly dollar amount, but it is what it is. So.
The only thing that I'm interested in is I want that U2 Shadow album, they're calling it, How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like it shouldn't be that hard to get. They're pressing 15,000 copies of it, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. We'll see. Yeah. Well,
yeah. Other than that, even personally, there's not a whole bunch out there that I'm looking for myself. There is some cool stuff coming out. The Cult has a new, or not the Cult, pardon me, The Cure has a new one that's either tomorrow or the next day. I can't remember. Eminem, for what it's worth, that's out now. Emil and the Sniffers, which I keep hearing good things about. I haven't heard it yet, but it's coming. There's some decent new stuff coming down the pipe. Obviously, right around Christmas time. I think, you get that early spring release and you're going to get the late fall. We're going to sell a bunch of records at Christmas time releases as well. And those aren't Record Store Day deals. Those are just titles that are just coming out right now.
Trevor says he's happy that the Black Friday list is lame because he doesn't like buying for himself around the holidays. I couldn't care less about buying for myself. I mean, I have to buy for myself because no one else is buying new records. So Curtis says you look good, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah,
he looks like a Mexican wrestler. That's what he looks like.
I look slightly less than I normally do, so that's what I'm shooting for.
Chris says, I like the thought of Record Store Day, but if you look at Amazon a week later, it's usually available. Yeah, I found the last couple of Record Store Days I was able to find what I wanted at the record store a week later because nobody had bought the things I was looking for. So I can't justify waiting in line for hours and hours and hours, and I really don't like getting out of bed. So that's the main thing. I don't like getting out of bed. And I don't really have a good local record store. There's a small one that does a reasonably good job, but you can't get into the place because you only fit like 6 people in the store. It's so tiny. So I go to another city, and I'm like, I can't. It's too much work. Record shopping shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, exactly. But support your local record shop though when you can, for sure. So,
exactly.
I know that I get it. I get it as a guy that sells records. I understand. Like we want the stores to have good pricing, but as consumers, we also have a budget that we need to keep. And if someone like myself is $20 more than buying it off Amazon, that's a bit of a stretch. But if I'm a couple bucks more than buying it off Amazon, and we're like, I always kind of check, and we're below Amazon when we can be, for sure, and almost all the time. So, but I understand it's tough. It's, it's like anywhere. It's the same with buying TVs. We sell TVs, and we have to have it at a price that is good for the consumer. We also have to have it at a price that's good for us. So I understand people use Amazon, but when you can, not that I need to be on my soapbox, but when you can, support the local record store, television shop, mom and pop shop as much as you can.
Well, I just pre-ordered something, a record off Amazon from your favorite artist, Joe, Brian Adams.
Yeah.
It's coming out with a new box set next month, another Royal Albert Hall box set. And I liked the first one. This one's better because it's all live in front of an audience, 3 albums. And you could buy it from Universal Music Canada, I believe, and you could buy it from Brian's store. And it was, I'm a big round number, $200.
Sure.
And then shipping was going to be
Yeah.
$75 to ship it.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And then I went on Amazon, and they have it for $195 with free shipping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't I order it from Amazon?
No, I understand. Yeah. Oh, I get that for sure. Yeah. And that
Because I'm going to save myself like $80. Well, of course, you know, as much as I hate to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying.
Do you want me to order you a copy, Joe? Because I know you're a big Brian fan. You want me to order you a copy?
Yeah. No, I've got a few coming in. That way, in case there's a problem in shipping, I have a backup right away because I'll get into it like the day up. So.
Yeah.
I don't hate Brian Adams. I need to clarify. No, I don't need to clarify. Whatever.
No, you don't. We know you hate him. It's all good. It's all good.
That's true.
So our topic for tonight, as you can see scrolling across the bottom of the screen, we're going back to the 80s tonight.
Wow.
So I got my DeLorean time machine.
Perfect.
So we go back to 1985 or 1885 or, whatever you want. We thought tonight we would sort of just pick some of our favorite albums from the decade and talk about them. Nothing more sophisticated than that. It's that's what it is. And I was surprised as I sat down to pull records. I went, this is kind of hard because I have a hell of a lot more 80s stuff than I figured I did. So
yeah.
This one here was a heck of a lot easier for me this week than last week. So I got way more 80s stuff than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the 80s.
And because it was 80s, we were glad to have Brian on because Brian's. But Brian's like an encyclopedia. I've told you that before, Brian. But when I think 80s, I'm like Brian. So.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Makes me feel old, though.
Well, we're all old.
That's true. We are old. This is good.
Yeah. Well, he thinks of me when he thinks of the 70s, maybe. So don't worry.
1870s. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So to that end, since Brian is our guest of honor, you want to kick this off, Brian?
Sure. And right. I will say right up front that I think when people think of me, they also think of obvious 80s bands like Smiths, Echo and the Bunnymen, The Cure,
right?
OMD, Clash, even the Second Joy Division. But I'm not going to show any of that stuff. I'm going to show albums I love, but I'm going to avoid those classic synth pop bands. So I'm going to go right back to almost as early as you can get in the 80s, February 1980, for what is a cult punk, post-punk classic. This is the Young Marble Giants, Colossal Youth, which came out in February of 1980. Curious things about this band. First of all, there's 3 members. There's Alison Staton, she sings. There's Philip and Stuart Moxham, who are brothers. They do bass, guitar, and organ. So you didn't hear the word drums there because they didn't have a drummer. But what they did is they recorded drum sounds off a friend's or cousin or something, their drum machine, and played that in the studio. And they played music on top of a recording of a drum machine. So I want, this is a really interesting album for me because it sort of fits in alternative, post-punk, possibly new wave, but it's very minimal and hushed. So it's a very quiet record. Kurt Cobain once said this is among his 10 favorite records of all time. He and one of his 2 favorite bands of all time. In fact, Hole, Courtney Love's band, performed, if you know their song Credit in the Straight World, that's from this record. Galaxy 500, Belle and Sebastian have also covered songs from this record. So they only did 1 record and they did 2 EPs and appeal sessions. I only have the album. I've never been able to find the EPs, but there is a double release of this. I don't have it, but it has that stuff bundled with it, which I don't have. But this is also a repress. But this is, I would say, a classic because it's a bit unheralded. People who know it love it. It's kind of a cult kind of record. This particular issue comes with a nice insert with some retrospectives and people talking about them. But I'm going to say this is if I were to, well, I have a friend who comments that this is his favorite record of all time, which I find a little surprising. I'd put it in top 10, maybe top 10 records from the 80s, possibly. I think it's really good. Does anyone know it by any chance?
It's weird. Not weird. I don't know if weird's the right word, but I had a gentleman in the store yesterday ask for that specific album. And when he asked me, I said, I have never heard of it. So now I've really heard of it because he was just in yesterday and asked for that specific album. So no, I am not familiar with it. But
I forgot to say they're from Wales, and they did reform at some point to do some shows. Their band was originally known as the True Wheel, which is taken from a Brian Eno song on Taking Tiger Mountain. That there's a song called the True Wheel. They were known as that, but then they didn't record anything until Colossal Youth. Which anyway, I think it's not what you hear post-punk or you hear that kind of. It has a different sound altogether. I'm not even sure that adequately addresses the kind of music this sounds like. There's only one other person in the vinyl community I've ever seen show this, and that's Harris Pilton has mentioned this record, held it up one day, but I haven't seen anyone else show this. But it was a shame because I think it's excellent.
Cool, that's great. Now, have you like I said, it's one of those things that I'd never heard of, and then and now twice in 2 days. So that's
it means
maybe that's a sign that I just better go find this album for myself, let alone for the gentleman that was looking for it. So,
yeah, I'd encourage that.
Awesome.
Sorry, fellas.
All right.
That's all right.
Misbehaving 8-year-old. You know how it goes.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. All right. Who wants to go next? Daryl, you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm kind of like Brian on this one, where I mean I could show Journey and Donna and all that stuff. I mean, I've talked about Bruce Hornsby and the Range is one of my favorite bands of the 80s and stuff like that. I mean, they might be in my fire up round at the very end there, but some of these are going to be obscure. Some of them are going to be bands that are talked about but not commonly. So I wanted to stay away from the major players as well, just to showcase some other stuff. So my first two are actually going to be from down under. You don't hear too much about too many Australian bands. This one here is probably from one of my favorite movies of all time from the 1980s. They classify these guys as like funk, pop, whatever it is, but I would actually argue that to some degree the drum system that's in some of the songs on this would be bordering on some industrial stuff as well. And that is the band. I've only ever shown this once in the VC, and it was for, I can't remember his name. He is from Australia there, but I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But I did show it for one of his videos, and that is Big Pig on the album Bonk. And the song I Can't Break Away is just, I don't know, there's just something about that whole time traveling in a phone booth that kills me every time I see that movie. I mean, the sequel, the one with the Halloweenish type thing was just stupid, but I mean, it's I was listening to this earlier just before we went live here, and it's weird stuff, but at the same time it's pretty cool. You don't hear much about them. If you haven't given it a listen, it's worth at least one shot listening to Big Pig. Most people would probably know, at least from a one-hit wonder perspective, I Can't Break Away. But the rest of that album, I mean, it's quirky, it's weird. There's a song on there, side one, just the first song on it's called Iron Lung. And to me, the drums on it kind of have a very like early industrial vibe, but not Skinny Puppy or Ministry or anything like that, but kind of early industrial stuff. So I guess maybe a segue into that is kind of neat stuff. So I don't know if you guys have listened to the Bonk album, but it's definitely a unique, eclectic taste. But I thought I'd showcase it here.
Yeah, Daryl, it's interesting that the good thing about that record you just showed is that it's very affordable. I often see it for under $10. So
yeah,
it's good news.
Couple comments here. Chris is saying Brian is literally Discogs for discovering new music. There you go.
Thank you.
And Richard agrees with you. And I third that sentiment. So Chris is saying they're from Wales, where I am from. I'm assuming he's talking about Young Marble Giants.
Yeah.
Dan's saying one band he couldn't get into were the Violent Femmes. Richard says that album is $22 on Amazon. Tempting. Well,
That's a deal.
As we mentioned earlier, sometimes you can't help but do the Amazon thing. Richie, how you doing, man? A lot of people are showing that album 8 years ago. Cool. Well before my time in the violent community, that's for sure. Concert Buddy, how you doing, man? Any of you watching, Concert Buddy's going live tonight, so don't leave us and go watch him. We're more entertaining. Screw his live stream and stay here.
Yeah, there you go.
You know that. It's all good. It's all good. He moved his stream up tonight because tomorrow's Halloween, so surface noise. All right. Ace, what do you got? Oh, look who's here. MGK Buffalo.
That's true.
Ace, what do you got? What do you got for us?
All right. Real quick about Big Pig. I think I've told you guys this before. I used to DJ and we used to play videos. And there was a company somewhere out of Montreal, I think, or whatever. And they would do a compilation and they would send it. And that would be kind of our, there was 20 to 30 songs, videos on it because it was all back in the days of using Beta Hi-Fi. Anyway, so I would always put it in when we would get it and I would kind of go through. And that Big Pig one pretty much stuck out right away. It was just fantastic right from the start. It was also a great dance song back in the day. It really worked for the dance crowd as well. So I do like that one, and I think I have that album. I can't remember. So anyway, I don't know where to start. I'm not sure what I'm going to go with. I tried to pick some albums that I have not shown before. I don't know necessarily if I've shown them in some of the videos that I've done, but I believe anyway, have not shown them in our live stuff. So I'm going to go with, to start with, I'm going to go with a band I've talked about lots. I love them. I told a story about them last week. They had a big album in the 80s, but I'm not going to talk about that one. I'm going to talk about the first Van Halen, which is 5150, that came after 1984. The first one was Sammy. I think I talked about the fact that I really like Sammy Hagar. I liked him before he was in Van Halen. I liked him with Van Halen. I saw David Lee Roth. I saw Van Halen with Sammy, and it's just good stuff. And I hadn't listened to this one for a while. I put it on last night, and it's good. They get a lot of grief for it just because of the keyboards. And then Eddie reminds everybody that a lot of Jump is actually got a lot of keyboards in it, and there's a lot of keyboards on 1984 as well. Everybody just giving him grief, kind of like they give Geddy Lee grief for all his keyboards and taking the bass away and putting a bunch of keyboards in. But it's a really good album. It was strong. Of course, there was the, oh my God, I love Dave and I hate Sammy. And there was all that BS at the time. And I don't have my glasses on. I have my glasses with me, but I can't see. I believe it was 1985, 86. It would have been around there because 1984 was the album right before it. But so not an obscure album by any means, but I've never talked about 5150. I was also I started to come out with OU 812 because I really like that album as well, but then I decided to go with 5150. I think 1985, 1986 at the latest, but 1985, I don't need to tell you a whole bunch about Van Halen. You know about Van Halen, but I like the Sammy era equally as much as I like the Dave era. I was never a one or the other kind of a guy. So I thought I would show something a little different for a Van Halen from what I would normally show.
Fair enough.
Right.
All right.
Do we all know what 5150 stands for? Everybody knows that, right?
No.
No. I
forgot.
Pulling this out of my ass, but paraphrasing, I believe it is the police call sign for an escaped lunatic or something along the lines of that. So
there you go. Chance knows. Insanity code. There you go.
Insanity code. There you go.
All right.
Rob, what do you got?
Well, I've got some that you'll know and some that you won't. And I'm not going to show that one band till after 9 o'clock because I know Chance will be live, so he can't give me shit about it. Well, I'll save that until then. So, I mean, instantly the first thing that pops into my head when I think 80s is the most stunning woman to ever walk the planet. My fantasy wife, Susanna Hoffs. I mean, I can't talk about the 80s without talking about Susie and these other people that are in the band too. You know, I love the Bengals. I mean, it's nothing but simple 3-chord pop, but it's fun. This was Different Light, which came out in '85. It was their second album. It's the big one. It's the one that had Manic Monday and had Walk Like an Egyptian. I like all their albums, even the later stuff after they reunited, but this just happened to be the one that I picked. And the very exciting news is that Susanna had recorded an album in the '90s that was never released, and she just announced last week that the Lost album comes out next month. So I'm buying the shit out of that because it's my fantasy life. So nothing deep or sophisticated. It's just can't talk about the 80s without talking about Susanna Hoffs. There you go. Wish I had something deep and insightful to say, but I don't.
She's an attractive woman. She's a nice-looking woman.
Even at 65, she's stunning. So
yeah.
Let's see here. Richard says released in March '86, talking about your Van Halen album. He saw them on that tour in St. Paul, Minnesota. So, there you go. Round 2, Brian.
Oh, back to me already. So we're going to go from a cult classic album to a kind of artist with a cult following and this came out in February 1980. Did I get there? February 1988 or 1988. I can't remember the month. This is a guy called Momus, Momus, which is the name of the Greek god of mockery, but his real name is Nick Curry. He's born in Scotland. He was a journalist for Wired. He was an avid blogger. He's kind of like an art kind of guy. He has a blog about art. He's done some podcasts on art. Anyway, this is what I would call maybe intellectual synth pop, if that makes any sense. It has a lot of ironic lyrics in it. By the way, his pose here with his fingers. Have you ever seen the album Primal Scream, More Light? They're doing this. That's where they got it from. It came from here. So this is, I mean, just the song titles. When I first saw it, like there's a track called The Homosexual, which was supposed to be the title of the album, but apparently the record company wouldn't go for it. But Complete History of Sexual Jealousy, parts 17 to 24. I mean, this is just, everything on this record is really, really cool. I was a Maoist intellectual. That one always cracks me up. So a guy that has, you know, I'm showing this and you're thinking, many people won't know who he is, but he's released 35 or more solo records, if you can believe it, since the 80s. This is his second record, probably his best record. And is sort of an enigmatic figure. It's hard to really figure him out. Weirdly, in later years, he wears an eye patch because he had a contact lens incident, which left him with diminished sight in one eye. And so he wears an eye patch. So he looks a bit like a pirate. And he lives in Japan, oddly enough, and Germany. He sort of splits his time between Japan and Germany. So really strange music, but quiet. When I say synth pop, it's not like Depeche Mode synth pop. It's very quiet and reserved in a way, but I think you really focus on the lyrics. It's not so much the music, it's really the lyrics that you get. So, and I should have mentioned that the track, The Homosexual, comes from his feelings of, discouragement, I guess, with the comments about AIDS during the 80s, like the sort of negative attention that was given to the gay community about AIDS. So it's a really fascinating record. The problem is when you have some guy with 35 records, where do you start? I'd say this one is probably the place to start, or his first one. Really interesting record if you're interested in that kind of thing. So I'm gonna recommend that one because I think it's really cool, and it's a favorite of mine. I love this record. I think it's fantastic.
That's impressive. 35. I mean, that's like almost an album a year. That's impressive.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Crazy.
Insane.
You can only imagine trying to memorize the lyrics for all those albums, playing concerts later on. It's just insane.
Could you even do it? I don't know.
Daryl, what you got?
All right. So for my next one, we'll see if I take a little bit of flack for this one. I guess it all depends on what your thoughts are on this. For me, this is more of a sentimental album. I was a year old when this one came out. My dad used to play it lots when I was a kid. It's the slow, lovey-dovey kind of stuff, I guess, on this one. I mean, if we're gonna go with a band from down under, and all that lovey-dovey stuff. I mean, I might as well throw in some Air Supply. And this is the Lost in Love album. So I don't know what everybody's thoughts are on this, but it's on this one. Lost in Love, All Out of Love, and Every Woman in the World. Those are the 3 songs inside one to start this off. And my dad used to play this all the time. This and REO Speedwagon he had on the radio all the time. He had cassette tapes of it and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't want to bring out the REO Speedwagon, although that is probably my first music video that I remember. Yeah, the REO Speedwagon music video there for what's the one with the floating teddy bear? My dad used to put it on MTV all the time when it would come on. He'd even wake me up to come and watch it. That teddy bear that's just floating in space there. So for me, that's a sentimental one. But I mean, hey, if I was a high school student in the early 80s, I mean, I could have seen myself making out to that all day long. So why not? Why not throw in some Air Supply?
It's a flack-free zone here. Joe probably did make out to that one, right, Joe? Chris is saying my ADHD is going nuts with the container below the clock. What is that?
Oh,
oh, there you go, behind you.
This here.
Glad we could help you out, Chris. Is that better now?
Just so we're aware, that's my vinyl style record cleaning solution.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah, I was a high school student in the early 80s, and I'm not sure that I made out to that one. I was more of an REO Speedwagon kind of a make-out kind of a guy. And Aldo Nova, that was another one. Not that we need to get into my early 80s high school make-out music, because I don't know if I put any of that in here, but there's 3 anyway, in case you were wondering. And I already told
that
you
could be a
about
whole video, guys. We one week we could do make-out songs. We don't have enough women on the panel for this. When are we talking about making out when it's a sausage party? So,
oh my god.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Joe.
All right. Up next, I'm going a little soundtrack. I think there were a lot. I thought about actually just doing all soundtracks, because there were a lot of really good ones in the 80s, and they may come up still a little bit. This is a soundtrack from the 80s, from a movie that I really, really enjoyed, all about a band that was around in the 50s, but then they were trying to find them in the 80s, and that is the Eddie and the Cruisers soundtrack. This is a fantastic album, regardless of whether it was associated with a movie or not. Doesn't matter. And I think Rob and you and I talked about it on our soundtrack show, but John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, which everybody thought were a bunch of I think maybe black Afro-Americans or whatever that were from somewhere that they weren't, when it was just John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band from New Jersey. But good movie, great soundtrack, and just a fun listen. So like I said, a soundtrack of 50s style music from an 80s movie. And I just really enjoyed it. And I still do. I can put this on. This album holds its own. I guess there was a little bit of a single, but this album front to back, including what's the I don't have my friggin' glasses on. What is it? Season of the, I can't remember the last song. That was the Seasons in Hell. That's right. The one that didn't kind of fit, but even Salamato, Eddie and the Cruisers featuring Salamato. So yeah, just a fantastic album. And like I said, I can still listen to that all the time. For me, it holds up, and I don't know if it holds up from the 80s or the 50s or where it holds up, but it's a great album. I really enjoyed that one. And I do have the other, I don't know if they did more than one, but I have John Cafferty's album, and it's good. It was typical Jersey stuff. Again, it was very similar, but that's a classic for me from the 80s.
They did the soundtrack for the sequel too, Eddie and the Cruisers too. Eddie Live.
That's true.
And I've got both of them, and they're both fantastic. And even the sequel as a movie is good. It's got a little more 80s cheese. It's not as good as the first one, but the ending makes it worth it. It's. I love both those movies. I love both those soundtracks, and I've got John Cafferty's albums too. I'm with you on that. Fantastic.
Yeah. And they hold up. I think the movies hold up still. You watch them, and they're still pretty decent. So like I say, there were a lot of good soundtracks. Kenny Loggins made a lot of money in the 80s making soundtrack music.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Good pick. As Richard says, so many solid 80s soundtrack albums. Yeah, there's a ton. All Okay, I'm next, and I'm going to show. I don't know what I'm going to show. I'm going to show. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to show this album, Canadian album that many people view as a one-hit wonder, but it's an album I find that I listen to a lot. Alana Miles, her self-titled debut from 1989, so we're just in under the wire. This is actually a promo copy. It's got the gold stamp on the back. You know, I can't help but think every time I listen to this, the career that she could have had. Probably everyone knows Black Velvet. I mean, that was even a hit in the States. Massive hit. Great song. But in Canada, there was a lot of hits off of here. Love Is, Black Velvet, Lover of Mine, Kickstart My Heart, I think was the other single. This was all over the radio, all over TV in the late 80s, early 90s. And then she had her second album, which I think was Rocking Horse, I think. And it was actually nominated for a Grammy in the US, though I can't think of a single song off of that album. And then she developed a wicked coke habit, and her career just tanked. And she could never get past the success of Black Velvet. And so she still every once in a while shows up in a bar looking like shit. Time has not been kind to her in playing Black Velvet. It's such a shame because she had this great, powerful voice with, you know, it was kind of raw and just amazing and good songwriter. And she worked with some good songwriters. I love this album. I listen to it front to back with some regularity. It is a fantastic album that if you like the song Black Velvet, give the rest of the album a chance because there's a lot of good stuff on here.
Love Is a fantastic rock song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't checked that one out, that Love Is top notch. And then, I mean, Lover of Mine's a great song too.
And you can find that for $2, $5 at just about every record show, every flea market. Like it's all over the place. You see it everywhere. So if you find one, grab it. It's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah, she does have a fantastic voice. Absolutely. Well, and here's a good point. How about some Sass Jordan? That's of the same kind of vein. She is, again, fantastic. I don't think she's done anything in the last 15 years that I can think of, other than she was on, I think she was one of the judges on Canada's Got Talent, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know if she's put in any music, but yeah, another of that same sort of powerful, raspy female from that same time period. Yeah, I don't have any Sass Jordan, but I have a friend.
She's out on the you know, the festivals, the Canadian festivals. She's out doing that circuit and still sounds good. I saw her a couple years ago. I have the one. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's really good. I think the next time we do our Canadians talking about Canadian music, we may have to do a female thing. I know we brought that up before, but there was a lot of talented and good Canadian female artists, but her and Sass definitely fall into that category.
Tim apparently has a funny Sass Jordan story. Let us know, Tim. We want to hear it. Speaking of, Joe, that's a great segue. Canadians talking about Canadian music. Episode 2 that we did of that, which was like almost 2 months ago, is now up this week on the Vinyl Community Podcast. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts from. I think it is Brian's turn.
Oh, already? All right. I had chosen a record by a band called The Fall, and this is This Nation's Saving Grace, with the title kind of split there, from 1985. This is a band from Manchester, led by Marky Smith, who died in 2018. I guess you'd say post-punk. It was probably a good description of this band. Here's the inside. They were they're finished now because Marky Smith died. The weird thing is they made something like 35 records, and they had I guess a large exchange of musicians. So they had something like 60 musicians flowed through the outfit, but Marky Smith being the only consistent member with this really strange vocal delivery that's like almost like shouting. This is probably their most commercially accessible record. It's probably the most mainstream thing they did, but it was also kind of weird enough that it didn't allow them to gain any real commercial success. But this is a really good record from start to finish. There's an interesting track on here called I Am Damo Suzuki, which is a tribute to the lead singer at the time of Can, or for a period of time of Can, which is really interesting because it has lots of references to Can in there. And then there's some weird stream of consciousness kind of singing on paintwork. The lyrics are kind of stream of consciousness. Really interesting opening instrumental called Mansion. That actually closes out the record too with some vocals in it. But yeah, they did 32 records. I think it's 32 records. They had a number of EPs and singles, and you either love this band or you hate them. And people who love them tend to be fanatical. They try to get everything that's released, which is really difficult. But a band that I think doesn't really get heard of, or people don't really talk about them a lot, and I think they should, because I think if you asked anybody about the Fall, they might say the song they know is Hit the North. That was like from later 80s. That might be a song they know, but everything else I think maybe people aren't quite aware of. But I thought they were very interesting, although I know that some people just don't like it. It's kind of weird and repetitive in ways, but there's lots of experimental stuff. But this one has some pop hooks, some real genuine pop hooks, but still it didn't really have a great deal of commercial success, but I found it really interesting. So I'll show you the label on that one if you're curious. All right.
Cool. Again, 30 albums. What an output. Holy shit.
Exactly, right?
Good Lord.
Yeah. Crazy.
Chris says you can tell you like British music. You have fantastic taste.
Thanks. Oh, I hope I have more than British music in here. Maybe it's all British. Who knows?
This is Brian's getting all the love here tonight. I picked the right guest, so we're good. Let's see here. Brian, you should check out the Stereophonics. You probably own Stereophonics. Brian owns everything.
I don't own them, but I'm familiar. Like I do know the band. I don't own anything currently, but yes. Well, I know some of their music. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Daryl.
You're right. So I had mentioned that I wasn't going to show to like big name bands and stuff, the obvious choices. But this one is a lead singer from one of those. Once he went solo after leaving the band. Obviously, there's different iterations. There's the before this singer was in the band, and then there's the arena rock version of the band, and then he goes solo. I just couldn't. I like Journey when he's in the band, and I like him when he goes solo, and that's Steve Perry. And Steve Perry's first album, which is the Street Talk one, and this is the one that has Oh Sherry, Foolish Hearts on it. I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm all about those arena rock guys, and I think it's unfortunate. I mean, over the years, I mean, his voice, he's just got that raspy voice, but I don't think he's doing too many shows, if any at all, because I think his vocal cords are shot to a degree. He always had that range there. This one's just on the Columbia label. It's nothing special, but I don't know what it is about some of these guys. I've talked about Paul Carrick as well when he left, the band that he was in. I just like a lot of these guys that in the 80s kind of went solo. I do like Phil Collins as a solo artist. I wasn't going to show Phil because he's too big name, but Steve Perry, I mean, I just like that arena rock stuff. And Oh Sherry just kind of was his ode, I guess, after he left Journey. So I went that route. Little Steve Perry.
There's nothing wrong with showing. It's too commercial. Fuck that. I'm going to show some big popular stuff because all you guys are like, I'm going to be intellectual and show shit no one's heard of. Fuck it. I'm going to show big. I'm showing Bon Jovi next, so buckle your fucking seatbelt. Too commercial. Piss off. Good choice, bro. I like that.
Yeah, good album.
Yes. Joe.
All right.
Show something no one's heard of.
Nope, you'll have heard of all of these. Well, maybe.
Perfect.
Maybe
I
not.
love it. Bring out the big stuff.
Don't be afraid. I'm doing a 10-fer. Yes, 10-fer. But it's going to be fast. It's going to be rapid fire because I talked about the fact I was a DJ and I was a couple of different versions. I was on the radio, but most of the time I was in the nightclub because it just paid better. Plus, you could drink. Although I did drink on air when I was at the radio station too. But so I talked about the times where I played videos all the time. But before that, I was a DJ using turntables, and we used to play a lot of 12-inch singles. So I'm going to do a 10 for 12-inch single. These are all from the 80s. This is stuff I played ad nauseum. But I love the 12-inch singles because it gave you time to talk to the young ladies that were hitting up the DJ. Also gave you time to go and pee or to go get a beer. So Dire Straits, Walk of Life. Pardon me, not Walk of Life. This is Twistin' by the Pool. The only Dire Straits song that really doesn't sound like a Dire Straits song. That's not completely true. This one always got everybody up on the dance floor. A little George Michael. I thought I had faith. I do have faith. I just don't have faith 12-inch singles. This also is the only time you're allowed to show 12-inch on YouTube and get away with it. Let's see, what else have we got? Oh, this one. Yeah, this one's pretty good. This is Janet Jackson, the other Jackson. And which one is this? I don't even know what this is. Oh, Nasty. Nasty if you want to be. Miss Jackson if you're nasty. Katrina and the Waves. I knew I had Walking on Sunshine somewhere, so this was always a good one. This was a nice fast-paced one, always good. And what is this? Oh, Opus, Live is Life. That was always a fun song. I really liked that one. It was kind of like that Big Pig, not the same style, not the same speed, but it had that really great drums in it and was always good. So there's another one. Then there was a little ZZ Top 12-inch, which didn't necessarily lend itself to, but Sleeping Bag did. So it was the 12-inch, and I'm not even sure. Let's see, how long was this one? This was, there's no time on there, but it was the extended. Hey, look, the Bengals, Walk Like an Egyptian. Yeah, the 12-inch version of Walk Like an Egyptian. It's good.
12-inch version.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting for you to set you up for that one. And then it's got the full album on the back. What do we got? Oh, we got The Art of Noise, featuring Tom Jones and Prince's Kiss. This one I played lots. I really like this one. The Art of Noise, played a lot of that in the club at the time, but this was always good. This was Tom Jones and Kiss. And then a little Bananarama, which if I never hear this song again in my life, I will be a happy man, because much like Sledgehammer, everybody and their dog wanted to see Bananarama as often as you would play it. And so I have heard Venus enough times in my life. It certainly should have fallen into the category of the songs we've heard enough times in our life that we did a while ago. And last but not least, the 12-inch, the party song, a little Moni Moni from Billy Idol. I was actually going to grab the Vital Idol disc, which is all the 12-inch versions of Billy's songs, because his songs were great on their own. Him and Steve Stevens made some fantastic music. But then when you stretch it out and you rock it up even just a little bit more, really good. But every wedding, every night, it always worked. It always played. And I always liked Billy Idol. Billy Idol, a big part of the 80s that I didn't actually pull out because I did have that one in there. So I didn't show that one. So there's your 10 of 12-inch singles from the 1980s that I played ad nauseum in the bar. Not ad nauseum, that's not true. There's just a couple that I never need to hear again. But I've got them, and every once in a while I get the turntables out and screw around. That's not true. I was never one of these kind of guys. I just put it on and played it, and then I went and got a beer and I came back. So the more 7, 10, 12-minute versions of the songs, the better off it was. So,
well done, sir. I made you extra large. I gave you full screen without us on there, so you could squeeze your 10.
I saw that. I could get the whole 12 inches out there.
That's right. That's right.
And that Opus Live is Life song is great.
Yeah, it's a good song, very much so. And I got a whole.
You don't hear too many Austrian bands out there.
Nope, that's right. Anybody else hot? Is it hot in here? It's hot in here, right?
It's maybe your makeup there, Ace.
It's not running yet, though. It looks pretty clean still.
I saw you scratching earlier, and I'm like, is that your face or is that your makeup that's bothering you?
Yeah, no, that's the old man white beard underneath. So, oh yeah, for anybody just tuning in, it may sound like Joe, but it's actually Ace Frehley sitting in his basement talking about records. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exclusive.
I was very fortunate to have one of the members of KISS join us tonight. So,
yeah. You wouldn't even allow that. I don't think. If we could make that happen, you'd be, no, I'm good, thanks.
No, I'd be like, no, Joe will host you over on his channel. I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Let's see here. Richard's saying the discussion is giving me good ideas for my beer and vinyl contest video. Yeah, well, let's mention this plug. One of my former co-hosts, Alex from Beer and Vinyl, is hosting a contest to celebrate his first anniversary in the VC. Go check that out. I'm going to do an entry. I just haven't given it sufficient thought yet. So, Daydream Vinyl, hello, welcome. I guess that means it's my turn. So,
It is.
following off of what Daryl said, I'm going to show something huge and stereotypical and commercial. And for those that don't like it, too bad. Because so much of the 80s was that stadium rock. And I, at the risk of going off on a rant, I get so tired of people in the vinyl community going, can't like that, it's too commercial. Who gives a shit? You like what you like. So, to that end, I'm going to show one of the best albums of the 80s, Slippery When Wet. Because hair metal and that, whatever the hell you want to call that shit from back in the 80s was awesome. When I think of the 80s, this is what I think of. These guys and, GNR and all that kind of stuff. So, Slippery When Wet from 80, I don't know, whatever the hell it was. What a great record. I think it was their second, and it's got You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, Wanted Dead or Alive, I Die For You. I mean, this is a fantastic record. As stereotypical 80s as you get. I know Curtis is a big fan. He and I have talked about this album. So there you go. Little Bon Jovi for the 80s. And if that's too commercial.
I was hoping to see the alternative cover, but I guess you don't have it.
We're working on that. Curtis, my good pal over at Young LP Lovers, has some connections in Japan. So we're working on one. So
it's a good album.
He's giving me a wink there.
It's a good album. It's well produced. It's fun. Nothing wrong with it.
There will be the alternate cover in my collection in the near future. Let's put it that way. Just didn't have it in time for this evening. So. All right, a few comments here. Let's see, where are we? Keep going. No, don't keep going, Ace. No. Reckless Hysteria? I don't know. Maybe. We might see that show up. It's too popular for some of the people on the panel this evening. Not this guy. Bob and Doug McKenzie called. They said Ace is a hoser. Damn right they did.
Take off, I'm telling you.
That's right. Slippery When Wet. Yeah, we did that. A few people have it. Attack from Down Under. Welcome, man. All right. Let's go again. Right?
Okay.
Brian.
All right. I'm going to show what I think is a fun record. There's certain records that remind you of specific times and places. And this record from the Stranglers, Oral Sculpture, is one of those. I don't know. It came out in 1984. They had a different sound for the Stranglers. I mean, I guess they experimented with changing their direction a little bit in the previous record. But with this one, they are full on sort of synth pop, smooth. They've got horns in here. They got some smooth singing. And this really connected with me when it came out, primarily because of two tracks in particular. Skin Deep, there's a great video for that. And sorry, I've lost my. Oh yeah, No Mercy. Right. So those were big hits. Well, I don't know if they were hits. They were big tracks where I was hanging out back in the day. And I don't know, just everything. The way it starts, Ice Queen, that sort of really cool introduction. Mad Hatter, Under the Name of Spain. I thought this was a really great album. And the funny thing is, as much as I love the Stranglers from day one or whenever the first day I heard them, they had that sort of punk sound with keyboards, which kind of separated them from other punk bands because they had the keyboards in there, which I think was a good service to them. And then it's funny, although I love all those records, for some reason, if you were to ask me to pick my favorite Stranglers record, I might pick this one because I love it so much. I just think it's fantastic. And I know some Stranglers fans maybe weren't thrilled with this change in direction, but I just think it's great. I love this record. I listen to it frequently. Even now I listen to this record frequently because I just think it's so cool. That's all I'll say about that. I think it's great.
I don't know, Brian. That's the most commercial record you've shown yet. So I don't know.
Whoa. Okay.
I've actually heard of it. So,
All right.
Richard's saying he loves that album. So there you go. Daryl, what's up?
All right. Speaking of commercial singers, I'm veering out, but I'm a little disappointed. I don't know where Music Talk is tonight because I'm going to throw out a little Billy Joel tonight.
Oh, you say it. He's going to show up in the next 3 minutes. I guarantee you.
He's
it's like Beetlejuice. You mention his name, he shows up. So
this particular album, it's kind of funny. When I was a kid, I used to have this VHS tape, and it was called "Hockey: The Lighter Side," and there was a song, the very end of it, by Billy Joel, and it's called "Running on Ice," and that's what comes. That's what this one is. This is the bridge. So I don't have too much Billy Joel in my collection. This is the one that I remember most from when I was a kid. I mean, I don't understand, not from the panel, but in general, I mean, there is this divide. Some people just hate Billy Joel. I don't understand it. It's he's not Bob Dylan. He's not running around on a cheese grater, right? I mean, this is the time and A Matter of Trust. Those are probably two big singles that are from this one. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I've always liked Billy Joel. If this was a 70s show, then I mean, I'd be showing Piano Man and all that kind of stuff on here. Yeah, I was hoping that Music Talk would be on here just so that we could get that out of the way. I'd like to know his take on that particular album. I know it's not exactly one of Billy Joel's most popular ones, but I mean, those two songs went big for him in the 80s. Very commercial, and to my knowledge, I mean, that's if you're into Billy Joel and you want to get a cheap album.
Did someone say Billy Joel? It's like Beetlejuice. You say the name and John shows up.
There you go, John. I got the bridge. I got the bridge on tonight. I'd like to know your thoughts on that one.
He loves it. He loves everything that Billy put out. Never sang a bad note ever.
No.
Hey, John, how you doing, man? Glad you could join us.
Yep.
Let me just do this here. Brian, a question for you. How did you discover all these UK bands before the internet?
That's a good question, but I would say that I had access. Well, there was a certain radio station, let's just say, in Toronto that was called CFNY, and back in the time period, they played music that you would never hear anywhere else. And that might sound like a bit of an exaggeration. They were, I guess, the last great, truly alternative radio station in North America. I mean, they were so cool. They played things that you would never hear anywhere else. I know that sounds extreme, but it's actually true. They had an import show. And so you just flipping through the stations, you would hear things. And first time I heard it, I was really disoriented listening to that station because I didn't know any of the music. It seems really strange. But all those bands that were like the ones I've shown were played on that radio station. So not Momus maybe, but yeah, that was probably the big thing. And then I had certain connections when I was in university, my undergrad. There was two people in particular who piped a lot of music to me. You know, you meet people that just have different backgrounds in music. So that'd be the two main things, but definitely the radio station. It was like a giant college radio station or university radio station. It's quite different from mainstream. And it still exists today, but it's kind of really different. So that would be it. The radio station, I would say.
Now, there was
question,
no, go ahead.
John says, I enjoy every song from the bridge. Running on Ice may be the weakest, as well as Modern Woman. There you go. Sorry, Joe, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Not at all. No. If memory serves me, but it doesn't serve me well, there was a documentary. Was it that one about that station where they would literally fly to the UK and buy the albums there just so they could be that ahead of everyone else? And I don't know if it was that or not, or if someone remembers that documentary. But like I said, they would go and they would buy the albums in the UK and bring them over and be the first to play them North American.
That station, the documentary is currently being made for that station right now. They're wrapping it up. I think they've done all the filming for it. But it's sort of, I think they did do that because Ivor Hamilton, who was the import guy, would go to England and bring back records. Interestingly, in the early days, they actually played a lot of Rush. Rush wasn't getting played on any radio stations here. And I've said this before on my channel, but if you know the album Permanent Waves, there is a track called The Spirit of Radio, and that was CFNY's tagline, The Spirit of Radio. And in fact, the catalog number for that radio is 102.1, which is the frequency for that radio station. So they changed their direction. They played less Rush later on, but they were the first station in Toronto, or probably in Canada, to play Rush.
Cool. Yeah, like I said, I don't remember, but there is, I mean, I'm looking forward to this documentary, but there was another one, but it must have been, maybe it was something in the States. I can't remember. But there was one where, yeah, they would fly over themselves, the program director, or they would have people bring them, or, whoever was going there would bring stuff back. So that's cool.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm Sean Chapman. You got your first mention of Rush. And to correct you, it's actually 4 Canadians on the panel this evening. So shame on us for it taking an hour and change for Rush to come up. There may be some Rush shown. Who knows? There should be, because Rush is great. But a few of the people on the panel don't like to show things that are commercial. So it is what it is. Attack from Down Under wants to know if anyone's heard Attila 1970 with Billy Joel. I mean, John probably does, has it, owns it, loves it. So there you go.
I'd like to answer, Camper von Beethoven. Take the Skinheads Bowling's a hilarious song. I don't know what to say. It's a funny song.
I do like Camper Van Beethoven. In fact, I had a hard time narrowing this down. I had I could have easily chosen them, but I didn't.
All right. Billy was very uninspired on that album. He wanted to stay home with his new child. The song Temptation is about Alexa Ray, his firstborn. Her middle name came from Ray Charles, also on the bridge. There you go. I just think maybe we need to do a Billy Joel episode and we'll sit here for 2 hours while John talks the whole time. I think that's what we need to do. Chris says, Joe, I watched the Hip documentary on Amazon. Not a fan of The Voice, but what a documentary. Thank you for saying that, Chris, because that has always been my contention with the Tragically Hip. As the guy that sort of appoints himself, one of the ambassadors of Canadian music, and that is 3/4 of what I own. This is probably our most revered band, and I can't stand them. I respect them tremendously, but that is exact nail on the head. I can't stand Gord's voice. May he rest in peace. We miss him, but his voice to me, can't do it. Can't do it. Anyway, so there you go, Joe. Someone watched your recommendation.
That's good. Yeah, well, I don't need to talk about it. I thought it was good.
There you go. John says, I have Attila as well as the 2 Hassles albums. And I remember that because when John was unpacking his music room live, I was on quite a few of those episodes, and I was lucky enough to be present when he was unpacking the Billy Joel. So there you go. I don't even remember whose turn it is. Who just went?
Me.
It's your turn. Okay.
No, Daryl, did you go?
Yeah. No.
I did Billy Joel.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So now,
okay, cool.
Now it's chosen.
All right.
See, Billy Joel just derailed this whole train here.
That's right. Yeah. And he showed up. I'm going to talk about a Def Leppard album. It was massive in the 80s, but not the one that you're thinking of, because I want to talk about Pyromania.
I can go grab that one if you want.
You've got Hysteria. So, yeah, I mean, I can't talk about.
I can't honorable mention.
There you go. I can't talk about the 80s and not talk about Def Leppard because I was a big fan. And Back to High and Dry and back through the night, and Hysteria is Hysteria, of course. But I really like Pyromania. That's kind of when I felt that they hit their stride. And then Bob got a hold of them and did that album and made it a little bit more poppy. This is still a little rougher, I think, for Def Leppard, but good stuff. Right from Photograph all the way through Foolin'. I still can hear Foolin' and never get tired of it. I really like this album. I don't have to say a lot about Def Leppard. We all know Def Leppard, and we all, like or dislike Def Leppard. And like I said, that's still not the most commercial, not the biggest album for them, but my favorite album by them still is Hysteria. So that's the one I chose for the 80s. And there's a picture of me. Did I show? Hold on. Discuss amongst yourselves. I think I've shown this before, but in case I haven't,
Not that I recall.
please hold. Maybe I haven't. So this is my. I did a meet and greet with them, but they were really the hey, how's it going? See you later. Thanks for coming. Kind of a meet and greet. Other than
I
Rick
can't
Allen,
believe
Rick was
that they would
pretty
be
cool.
that disrespectful to a member of KISS.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't think. Now they toured with Ace. They hated him. He was drunk most of the time.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
so there's my autographed version of the picture. But then there is actually it's my friend Joe and Def Leppard one day when he got to hang out with them and take the picture. But yeah, everybody was good. Like I said, Rick was the most talkative. Everybody else was kind of, yeah, let's just get this done. We've done this a billion times before and we're tired of it. But yeah, they were good.
Does Phil ever wear a fucking shirt?
No,
Ever?
no. He gets up in the morning and actually he wears a shirt to bed. He sleeps in a shirt, but the rest of the day, him and Iggy Pop, they never have to do laundry because they just never wear a shirt.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm
There you
glad
go.
I'm glad you showed Def Leppard, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I love them. They're good.
Me too.
And like I said, Hysteria is Hysteria, but I really like Pyromania quite a bit.
I do too. Big fan. Love Def Leppard.
Yeah.
And if Alex was here, he's the biggest Def Leppard fan. So.
That's right.
Where are we here? John saying hi from Epcot in Orlando. Cool. John was road tripping today, so I'm happy with Def Leppard's greatest hits on vinyl. Photograph really got them popular among the casuals. Yes.
True.
Def Leppard was super nice when I got to meet them. Tim, one of these days, man, you got to get on YouTube and you got to. Tim, my pal from Ottawa, has met everybody. I'm not shitting you. He has met. You name them, he's met them. So I'm sure that would be a cool story. Met them in 2018. Very cool. All right, my turn. I am going to show one of those albums that I've shown it before, but it's one of those albums that, you remember where you were the first time you heard it, and an album that changed my life. Nebraska from 1982. This is the album that made me fall in love with Bruce Springsteen's music. I still have to do a Springsteen video at some point in time, but I've told the story before that I just never gave Bruce the time of day. Couldn't care less. Yeah, whatever. No big deal. And one day I was in a record store and this was playing, and I went, "What is that?" Just blew me away. I didn't ask the guy in the record store because I didn't want to sound like some idiot that didn't know what a goddamn good record this was. So it was one of those, "Hey Siri, what song is this?" Shut up, Siri. I wasn't actually asking you. And so I bought it, and it blew me away. I mean, there's everything. Everyone knows this album, so I don't really need to talk about it. But this it made me go, okay, Bruce is more than just Born in the USA, which was all he really was to me. So then I started with Darkness on the Edge of Town, and then I got Born to Run and Asbury Park, and I just worked my way through. I'm halfway through his discography now, and I haven't found anything that I haven't absolutely loved on the first listen through. And I feel like I've missed something over the last 30 years by not hearing this man's music. So one of my favorite albums of the 80s that really is just new to me within the last year, just blew me away. Nebraska.
Good record.
Yep.
Great
Love
record.
it.
Yeah.
Love it. I liked it because lyrically it's good, but it sounded like each song sounded like something else that I'm familiar with and things that I listen to. Like, I'm like, that kind of sounds like that band, and that kind of sounds like that band, but those bands wouldn't do it. And it just, as I'm listening to this in the store before I knew what it was, I'm just like, this is just such a bizarre, fresh yet familiar kind of thing for me. I absolutely loved it. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's aptly described. I like that. Yeah.
I think that's a general consensus. So there we go. That album is going to be on my most played album this year. Yeah. I don't know if any of you caught, because Bruce has the new documentary coming out on, I think it's Disney Plus. He was on Stern again last week. Stern did an interview like a year ago, and it was like 2 hours long. He did another one, and the full E Street Band was there, except Steve Van Zandt wasn't there, but everyone else was there, and it was a great interview, and he did a lot of performances. And he was talking about Born in the USA, and which he was doing at the same time that he wrote Nebraska. And he said he had originally envisioned the song Born in the USA as a track that was going to be on Nebraska. So he has a version of it, the original version, which sounds like the songs from Nebraska. And he played part of it. And I was just like, because it was so good. It's better than the version that is out there. And he said, if I had my choice now, I would release it like that, not the way that I did release it. So.
It wouldn't be, it's safe to say it wouldn't be confused as the rah American anthem that it is if it would have been in its original form. Yeah.
Actually,
Absolutely.
there's a version on Tracks, which is a real more raw kind of take on Born in the USA as well, which is quite different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I see the interview with Zach Bryan and Bruce Springsteen? I did. That was cool to watch too, because here's a musician who was a fan and is a fan, and you know, a guy that's relatively young in his career and a guy that's been doing it 50 years. And it was great to see those two musicians talk. And it was nice to see the reverence that they had for each other. It was a great interview, for sure.
Yeah, it's a very good. Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. And then I love the every once in a while you could just see it. Oh shit, I'm talking to Bruce Springsteen. And
right.
Right. Yeah. And then every once in a while, oh shit, I'm talking to Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Yeah. Nebraska and the Ghost of Tom Joad are my favorite acoustic albums by the Boss. Yeah, and John and I were talking about this, I think, when he was doing his Unpacking live stream. I have the Ghost of Tom Joad. I just picked it up recently, and I liked it the first time through, but I would say I need to digest it a little bit more. But what I heard I liked. I still prefer Nebraska, but Tom Joad, I like it so far, yeah, for sure. I think I'm going to be a Bruce completist at some point in time. But that's a pretty large discography to work your way through it. I'm not just going to buy a record, I own it, let's do it once, and on to the next one. It's like, no, I've probably listened to this 150 times. And that's a little excessive for some of them, but I get to know an album before I move on to the next one. So I'm very much enjoying that journey of working my way through his discography. It's a lot of fun. I have just ordered the first Springsteen box set, Volume 1. Cool. Love it. All right. Brian.
Well, Rob, just sticking with Springsteen for a moment, you might be surprised to learn that I am a Springsteen completist. I have everything, including bootlegs and
that shocks me.
12-inch singles. He was my favorite artist for a long time. In fact, he was on the stack of records. I had Nebraska pulled out, but I put it back. So I should have kept it out. But yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So a little surprising there. But I'm going to choose, my next one is what I consider to be the best album of 1989. That's Pixies' Doolittle, which is one of those records that when you hear it now just sounds like a greatest hits record, because I think every track on here had, I don't know if I'm mistaken on that, but it seems like every track on here is just so great. It sounds like a greatest hits record. I don't know. But, I mean, this is our second full-length record. I think it's our second full-length, right? And I just think there's something about it that's just, I don't know. I think they nailed this. Whatever sound it is that's on here, it's hard to say. Is it really, it's not really new wave, I don't think. I don't know. I don't even know what the proper description of this record is, but it's a record that always connected with me. I just love everything on here. It's just so good. And I think it's a combination of Frank's got a really interesting voice, and Kim Deal's voice is really interesting. Great guitar work. I mean, everything seems to come together perfectly here. I think it's the best thing they've ever done. And some really kind of lyrics that are kind of disturbing, like Wave of Mutilation, apparently about Japanese businessmen driving their cars into the ocean to commit suicide. That's a really interesting thought. So it has these dark moments, but everything on this record, Monkey's Gone to Heaven, it's just so good. Yeah, I'm not going to say much about it because I think many people already know this, but I just think it's fantastic. I picked it as my favorite from '89.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, I should say one other thing. What I read recently, I didn't know this. They didn't want to record "Here Comes Your Man" because they thought it was too commercial, too much like a Tom Petty song. But they did it anyway eventually. So,
what do people have about commercial? Commercial's
know.
good. There's nothing wrong with commercial,
as long as it's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you, man. He absolutely loves our live stream. Thank you, man. That means a lot.
It does.
Do I have any Jesus and Mary chain? I do not, but I should. It's on the list.
That was on my stack of records too, and I didn't carry it over here. So
I think my list of stuff that I should own is actually a lot longer than the list of stuff I actually do own. But I've tried really hard in the last year not to buy anything online if I can absolutely help it, unless it's something I absolutely must have. Because then I'm just going to be buying records every bloody day. So I have the list that I'm always looking for if I go to a record shop, if I go to a store, if I go to a flea market, whatever. So on the list. Daryl.
All right. So this next one is a gentleman that I know for a fact that if Rob had the opportunity to go for dinner with this guy and tell him about his personality and how much he appreciates this guy's personality, Rob would do it in a heartbeat and tell him all his thoughts. So going to 1989, I have to go with little Don Henley, The End of the Innocents. It's a great album. I mean, let's face it, we talked about him before.
Put it this way, Daryl. I would end his innocence. Let's put it that way.
But I think that, I think it'd be cool to have dinner with him, and you know exactly what kind of a dinner conversation that would be. But I mean, this has the heart of the matter. The only one it doesn't have is The Boys of Summer, but I'm pretty sure that this is his most commercial album as a solo artist. I mean, The End of the Innocents, Last Worthless Evening, New York Minute. I mean, they're great songs. It's just too bad that it all comes with that ego and personality that, I don't know. I mean, just look at the album cover. I mean, the guy is just sitting there with a cigarette in his hand, smug as a rug,
looking like a shit bag.
And I mean, what was it? It was 3-4 years later that they did the Hell Freezes Over tour, and then it all went to shit again, right? I mean, he's just,
yep.
I mean, you can't go wrong with his music, but his ego is just so inflated, it's not even funny.
Yeah, it's probably true.
But it's a great album. Great album.
I always find myself so perplexed isn't the right word. I love his music. I absolutely do. Huge Eagles fan. I like some of the solo stuff. And I just go, he's such a despicable asshole. I just, there's not enough vitriol I can spew at that shitbag. But I love his music, and I've given him tons of my money, and that really pisses me off. But here's a great
the whole
question.
fact, just the whole fact that if you even try to play any of his music, and I mean, there's a few other bands that are like this. I mean, you get blacked right out on YouTube. I mean, come on, dude, like, you're a multimillionaire. What's a 2-minute song on YouTube? Like, you're just being so petty.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Who's worse for me, Henley for his ass hattery or Bob Dylan singing? Henley for his ass hattery. Bob Dylan has contributed so much, and everybody loves him. And I guess he's a good dude. I don't know. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about him. I'll take a shitty singing voice over a shitty person any day of the week. There you go. So that makes it Joe's turn.
It does. I I'm going to do a little curveball. I'm going to talk about one of the biggest bands from the 80s. They sold millions and billions of records. And it probably won't be who you think I'm going to talk about, but also before I was a DJ in the bar, I was a DJ at a radio station, and it would have been 84, 85. And these guys have been around for a while at that point, but it was a country radio station, and I'm going to talk about Alabama because they were massive in the 80s, and they sold a lot of records, and I enjoyed them. I don't know if I listened to them a lot when I wasn't working, but I always enjoyed playing them at the radio station, and they come up quite a bit. We played them quite a bit at the time, but I can still listen to them every once in a while. It's not a regular thing, but mountain music, everybody loves that. That's always at every wedding you ever go to as well. But it's good stuff. And like I said, they were one of the biggest bands of the 80s. They just happened to be a country band. And they were at the forefront of country music for sure. They won every award. They sold a bunch of records, and they were pretty good. And I think they had about 7 altogether, but you could count at least 2 or 3 hits. Now, could you count at least 2 or 3 hits because there wasn't a whole bunch else out there? But yeah, they were just good, and I enjoyed them. So that's I don't know if it's my curveball for the night, but yes, even Ace enjoyed Alabama. He, from time to time, would throw on a little mountain music, rosin up the fiddle and play, and you got to have a fiddle in the band. There you go. So a little Alabama. There's one of my 80s bands.
All right. The time has come. It's after 9 o'clock. Chance isn't here. He's over doing his surface noise, so I can show this band. And for anyone that gives me flack about it, I'm going to flip you the bird because it's my favorite band. From 1989, I'm going to show their second album, Diamond Mine, which is great. One of their best. I mean, I still prefer Outskirts, their debut. Yeah. But, man, what a great follow-up. A little more this really showcased Bobby Wiseman, who was their keyboard player at the time. He was very ethereal and very out there. And there's, it starts off with just like a track called Swells, which is just a sort of an abstract piano intro, and then the songs come in. But, the title track off here, Diamond Mine, is still a concert staple for them today, 35, 40 years later. And it is, when they play it live, it's like 12 minutes long. It's a big jam. There's a huge piano keyboard solo that is kind of in honor of Bobby Wiseman. He was a strange dude. Left the band in an interesting way. I'm not at liberty to share that story, but let's just say it was not amicable. But a hell of a good record. And I think the only other – so Diamond Mine was the big hit. How Long was another hit, and then House of Dreams was the other single. But, didn't live up to the monster that Outskirts was, but is still highly, highly regarded in their discography and is, I think you guys probably agree, this is kind of, this is sort of epitomizes kind of what Canadian music was in the late 80s. There was a lot of this kind of stuff being played. I'm not saying that they were leading the charts. There was a lot of this kind of music being played at that time. So I don't think it sounds like an 80s album nowadays, but an absolute classic as far as I'm concerned. This is an OG pressing. It was redone for Record Store Day. It had a white cover, and it was 2 LPs. But you can still find these occasionally, but the reissue you see all the time. But, I mean, not necessarily the first place I would start with this band, but you can't go wrong starting with this record. So.
Yeah, interestingly, I saw them a few times when Bob Wiseman was still in the band. He had a very interesting stage presence, but I was really surprised when he left. And after the fact, you think, was that a wise move? Because his career continued, but it really was nowhere near as solid as, or as successful as that early part of Blue Rodeo, right?
Well, I will say that there's everyone that has left Blue Rodeo, every one of them has been fired except for my buddy Bob. He retired. Everyone else has been fired, including Bob Wiseman. Yeah. I know the story. I'm not allowed to share it, but yeah, interesting. I've seen his solo records out a few times, but I mean, he's still around, but you don't see him, you don't hear him. It's it's a shame. Why another band didn't pick him up, because he was an incredible keyboard. For sure. Like he was. He is. He's an incredible keyboard player, but he really gets into it, and he's in another world when he's on stage playing. But good dude.
I think
great album.
I think Diamond Mine Live is worth the price you pay to get into the whole show.
Yes.
Like, it's, as you said, it's the extended, or it always seems to be.
Yes.
But so good, and and they light it nicely, and it always and it just builds, and it's, like I said, it's almost worth the admission of the whole show, and you just get Diamond Mine out of it. So very good. Very good choice.
It elevates them from being a country rock band or whatever they are into something else entirely. That song live is an experience. And unfortunately, we've done this topic before, songs you're tired of hearing. I'm actually kind of tired of hearing that one, because I've seen them in concert 51 times, which means I've heard Diamond Mine 12 minutes long 51 times.
Sure.
It comes on and I go, oh shit. There's another 10 minutes. I love the band, but that one I'm getting a bit tired of. But if you haven't heard it, it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Where are we here? There we go. Sawyer Brown were a fun country band. I recognize the name. I don't know if I would remember any of the stuff. I'm going to skip to Richard's comment because he's being smart ass. Richard. I'll show it anyway. White Horse were born in the 80s, right? That should count. Oh, I love White Horse. FVA, welcome, sir. Sort of country rock with soul. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to describe them. I struggle with that all the time, because they are and they're not, and I just don't know. Sam, how you doing? Stick around, because there may be some Petty and some Wilburys coming up. Just saying. Jesus, Joe, that mask scared the poop out of me. Yeah, looks like a Mexican wrestler. If you're talking 80s, you have to mention Madonna and Michael Jackson. I don't disagree, but like I said, there's some people that don't want to show commercial stuff here this evening. So. I don't have any Madonna or Michael Jackson, so sorry.
I have a Michael Jackson record. I'll tell you that.
My wife does, but I'm not going to walk upstairs.
I have both.
And Prince. Here's a topic: bands that rarely or never were on the album covers. That's an interesting topic. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the top again. Brian, you got more?
Yeah, sure. I picked this record by Talk Talk. I think.
I know Talk Talk
from London. This is '86. They're The Color of Spring, which I guess there's certain albums you remember the first time you hear them, and this is one that I definitely remember the first time I heard it. A friend lent me the cassette copy of this, and I guess you'd say this is midway between their, the first two were more heavily synthesized. There's still synth on here, but they moved towards a more organic sound with organ and guitar and piano. And then, as you may know later, they became more, not really improv, but it seemed like they're improv based. But this has, just from the opening moments of Happiness is Easy, fantastic song. Living in Another World is also a song that I'll always have fond memories of. I just think this is a beautiful record. It's jazz, art pop, maybe. I think someone described it as post-rock. I'm not really convinced it's post-rock. I always think of people like Godspeed You Black Emperor when I hear that term, or Mogwai, Explosions in the Sky. But I think this is a really terrific record. And of course, Mark Hollis died. When did he die? A few years ago now, sadly. He had a great voice too. But I think this is clearly one of my favorite records from the 80s. Really great record.
And above all of the wonderful ways that you put it, it also sounds really, really good. It's also a very well produced, really, really nice sonic, I think, sounding record. I think.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I agree.
That's not the one that has "It's My Life" on it, eh?
That's the
That's
previous one, which is also great. I think their first record is a bit of a disappointment to me, but the one before this and this one I think are really, really terrific. And going forward, but yeah. Lots of good music from that band.
Brian, you're making Chris very happy tonight with all your UK bands. So.
I've only got one American band in there. You know, when I put the Canadian one back, I should have kept it. So,
Daryl, what you got?
Yeah. So my next one, I don't know. I always find that this guy, I don't want to say that he is Bruce Springsteen because he's definitely not, but I find that he parallels Bruce, at least in the 80s, a lot. Now, I could have gone with the Scarecrow album. I chose not to go with the Scarecrow album because it's not my favorite one. So I went with Mellencamp's The Lonesome Jubilee because it has my favorite Mellencamp song on it, which is Check It Out. I don't know what it is about that song. There is that the solo in that song, it's a low guitar. And I think it's one of the best solos almost in any song from a guitar perspective. So Mellencamp, this is a great album. It's also got Paper and Fire and Cherry Bomb on it. So those are the three big singles. And I think I'm not a completist, but I definitely have John Mellencamp's major albums from the 80s. Yeah, I could have gone with any of them. I could have went with Scarecrow and there's another one there where it's like a pink colored album. He's standing on the cover there. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something about him. Definitely, I mean, I'm not saying he is Bruce Springsteen. There will never be another Bruce Springsteen, but he has some definite parallels to Bruce. And just a cool singer. You watch him in interviews and stuff. He's just seems like a pretty chill guy.
Yeah, even back to I think Nothing Matters and What If It Did. I think that's late 70s actually. I think that's just before the 80s with when he's still John Cougar Mellencamp when he had to get all three of the names in there. But he just progressively got better. And I saw him live, and your comparisons to Bruce, I think, songwriting, blue collar, that type of stuff. But then I saw him live, and he did like a 3-hour show, and that. So those types of comparisons as well. And he just seemed like a good dude. You sit down and have a beer and a smoke with John Cougar and you'd probably fit right in. He was good. And all his albums were good. And every once in a while he'd throw you a little bit of a curve in there and stuff. Like Cherry Bomb was kind of a bit of a throwback-ish or whatever, but it just fit in with everything else as well. And then Rain on the Scarecrow and all of the he was big with Willie back in the day for Farm Aid and stuff. He was always a big proponent and a big supporter of the Farm Aid stuff as well. So, yeah, I was a John fan. He was good stuff.
Let's see here. Richard says Lonesome Jubilee is such a great album. Attack from Down Under says I enjoy Scarecrow from time to time. Sam says his later stuff is better, and I need to get it. I've got his John Cougar stuff from back in the day, but I don't have any of the more recent stuff. Last two are great. No, we haven't seen it yet. At least I don't think. I haven't. I don't know if you guys have seen Springsteen's doc yet.
I haven't yet. Nope. No.
Dan says, love Scarecrow and Lonesome Jubilee. Sam says, just don't call him John Cougar to his face. I would, just to be a dick.
Yeah. That's what Don Henley calls him.
Yeah, exactly. Richard saw him open for Heart in the 80s, so that's cool. Can't believe Joe's not wearing a kiss mask. Joe's not here. This is Ace that's here tonight.
Yeah, that's right.
None. Whenever we wanted Mellencamp got kind of heavy in 91. I'll take your word for it because I haven't heard it. Ace, you're up next.
Ace, all right. I've gone somewhat commercial. These guys were commercial, but but I think some of the more highbrow crowd also got into them. They always did great videos. Again, lots and lots of play in the nightclub. Not so much for the dance aspect, but there was the early part of the night where people were just kind of sitting and drinking, and I always played a lot of REM videos. Obviously, this is not the biggest album, I don't think. I think you would probably out of what's that one called? My brain's starting to melt a little bit with Losing My Religion on it, and that somebody knows. Anyway.
Oh, you're thinking of Life's Rich Pageant. Life's Rich Pageant?
Life's Rich Pageant. Thank you very much. Yes, my brain is starting to melt underneath the tooth, but it's the end of the world as you know it, and just a lot of great stuff on here, and Michael Stipe and everything, and then they worked with the B-52s and they did a bunch of stuff, and I'm not sure why I can't friggin' hold an album in camera tonight, but this is probably my favorite from them. Again, I do enjoy latter and earlier stuff. Dead Letter Office and things like that. That was always really good too. But this is just the one that I decided to show because I really like this one. Yes, Out of Time. There you go. A little REM. One of the bands that I regret not ever having to see. And I don't know what kind of show it would have been. And I'm not sure, Brian, did you ever see them? That's a band that I think you might have seen. So I don't know what kind of show that would have been, but I wish I would have had a chance to have seen it.
Yeah, I saw them on weirdly a free concert on Yonge Street many years ago.
Oh, yeah,
they closed the street at lunchtime. I just left work and watched them. It was pretty cool, actually. The only time I ever saw them, though. Yeah,
that would have been good. And I don't think that's ever a reunion tour that we're going to get. I don't necessarily think because they don't like each other. I just don't think it's ever going to be something that'll happen. I thought maybe in the last year they got together for some award, like not Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or anything like that. But there was a time, I think, in the last year where the bulk of them were in a room together. And again, I don't think it's for a matter of they don't like each other. They just nobody wants to go and do stuff. I think Mike's just no, I'm good. I don't need to do that. That was my former life. I just want to be a painter now, if I understand correctly. I think is he not an artist painting? I think so.
He looks like the Unabomber now.
That's right.
He is a bit of a skinny man, that is for sure.
Chris says, I watched REM live in Cardiff. The support act was absolutely amazing. It was razor-like.
Not sure.
Dan is a big REM fan. They still got played whatever they wanted on stage from their catalog. Yeah. Out of Time. Saw them on that tour.
It was Out of Time. I said the wrong record there, but Out of Time.
Okay, I'm going to do a twofer. And if Sam's still watching, we'll make him happy. All right, I'm going to go with the one that came out first. And this is commercial, and if you don't like it, suck an egg. Probably the best album of the 80s, as far as I'm concerned. Traveling Wilburys, Volume 1, which was 1987, I think. 88. I was close. I mean, the group that invented the word supergroup, right? Roy Orbison, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne, and George Harrison. Kind of came together as kind of a fluke. George was working on an album, and he had a song. And I think the story goes he played it for either Tom or Bob, and they wanted to contribute something, and they all just ended up together, and they made a timeless album. I mean, I know Sam loves this album, and he's talking about it's one of his favorite albums of all time, and I say it's probably one of my favorite albums of all time as well. And the second album, which is called Volume 3, is also really good. Unfortunately, Roy had passed away, and it was still a good album, and I always wonder what could have been, because they had talked at the time that they were going to replace Roy with Del Shannon, which would have been friggin' awesome. And then Del Shannon died, so they just went on as the four of them. But Handle with Care is the big song that everybody knows. But I don't think there's a weak song on this album. From the first note to the last note, it's magical. And related to that, from 1989, Tom Petty's Full Moon Fever, which unofficially people kind of call this Wilburys Volume 2, because it happened in between the two Wheelberries albums, pretty much all of the Wheelberries play on this album at various points throughout the album. But it sounds, a lot like the Traveling Wheelberries record. This is the one that had Free Fallin' on it. It also has Won't Back Down, Running Down a Dream. I think those were the big
Zombie
hits.
Zoo, baby.
Zombie Zoo, yeah.
I love Zombie Zoo. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, two albums from the late 80s that are related, and man, yes. Okay, so yes. As much as I am not a big fan of Bob Dylan, I love Tweeter and the Monkey Man. It is my favorite Wheelberries song. Yes, and I know it was written by Bob Dylan. I love Tweeter and the Monkey Man. Love it. I love the Headstones version too, by the way. But yeah, Traveling Wheelberries. Let's see here. The only time I like Bob Dylan, Chris, you and I are the same, man. Because I feel exactly. I don't even like him when he plays with the band. I only like him in the Wheelberries. One of the best documentaries ever on the Traveling Wheelberries. Volume 1 is great. Volume 2 is great too. Richard says, Chris, I saw Razor Light in a teensy venue here in Denver in the early aughts. Lead singer walked off after 5 songs claiming stage fright. There was 50 to 100 people there. Crazy. Even Ringo's on that album. Yes. Perfect synthesis of all their personalities from the Wheelberries. Yeah. And I think, they were friends and they were all musically incredible, but that was secondary to their friendship. And they just got together and had fun. Like, I don't think they had any intention of it being an album. They just were playing in the studio, and it's a fun record. Such a good record. So.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Tom,
I
I tried to pull some stuff I've never shown before, and I could always find a reason to show that Tom Petty album. It is just so good. I mean, I'm equally as much of a Tom Petty fan as a Bruce Springsteen fan, and we all know how much of a Bruce Springsteen fan I am. But that and Wildflowers, and just and then to throw the Wheelberries in on top of it, and you get everybody that was in that, and that's one of those 6 degrees of separation of the people that are in that band and how many people they touched. It's insane. It's crazy. And it's such a fantastic album.
Yeah. Yep, it is. Brian, you want to go again?
Sure. By the way, it might also surprise you that I'm a Tom Petty completist as well as Springsteen. All right, let's go to the end of.
Oh my God, that shocks me, Brian. It really does.
All right, so I picked something from the end of the 80s, 1989. This is Ministry. The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste. I've always loved that title and this album cover. And now this is I heard this one. I was familiar with Ministry, of course, because with Sympathy, and then the next one, Twitch. And then I heard this one and the previous record at kind of the same time. And it sort of represents their transition from that early alternative sound they had through industrial metal. There's no other way to put it. This is a abrasive, really speed metal, kind of thrash metal. And it may seem like an outlier in my collection, but I love this record. I played this so often. I just thought it was fantastic. I like it more than the previous record, like Burning Inside, Thieves. This is I won't say too much about it because it's just that it's just so aggressive, very much guitar driven. And the themes in the songs are even hard to discern. But if you read about it, they'll say things like drug addiction, nuclear war, and that kind of thing. It's hard to figure that out from listening to it, but it's really, really cool. And I kind of fell in love with this record. I just think it's just so at the time, probably a little different from what I was listening to, but really kind of connected with me. I guess everyone needs a bit of aggression in their music collection just to rock out to every now and again. So this is a cool record, and the previous one too, but I think it's great. Yeah, 1989.
Thieves is actually a song. When I was in my senior year of high school, I went on a soccer tournament, and we had an alarm set up where my buddy had a CD in the CD player as the alarm, and we didn't realize how loud the volume was. And the song that came on was Thieves. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. It just came on so loud. It scared like you want Halloween Nightmare. That's just crazy. That's
Amazing.
That's not a good way to wake up. There's not any good way to wake up except when you roll out of bed and realize it's noon. That's a good way to wake up.
Yeah, maybe.
Daryl, what you got?
All right. So are we rapid firing or are we going one more round after this?
We might be able to squeeze one more in here.
All right. So I said at the top of the hour I wasn't going to show my favorite band. I was full of shit.
Good.
I mean, I just couldn't go without showing Bruce Hornsby. I mean, this is my favorite band of the 80s by far. I've done reviews of this if you haven't checked it out. I did a review video of all 3 of their albums from the 80s. So this is The Way It Is. And for me, you know, Rob, you talked, I forget which album you were talking about earlier, almost like a greatest hits album. To me, this is a pretty much near perfect album. The only song I don't like on it is the last one, The Red Plains. It's not, I don't know, it just doesn't fit the album. But I mean, On the Western Skyline, Every Little Kiss, Mandolin Rain, The Way It Is, The Wild Frontier, these are all fantastic songs. And just yet again, another one of these guys. I mean, you know, Joe, you were talking about Mellencamp, and I mean, just seems to be a really standout guy. I've seen things about Bruce Hornsby. I mean, he's heavily involved in sports and baseball and his kids. And I mean, he just doesn't seem to have a nasty bone in his body. And I mean, the guy made music of just like, you know, you talk about themes of everything from homelessness to farming, environmentalists, racism, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just powerful music. And if you haven't had a chance to check out Bruce Hornsby and their 3 albums, I mean, to me, it's fantastic. I will always support and promote that. You know, if I were to promote a band that is not Canadian from top to bottom, they'd be the one. Yeah. So some Bruce Hornsby.
Awesome. Good stuff.
All right, Joe.
All right. I'm going to show one, but first I'm going to take off the sleeve.
It's not what I thought you were going to say.
That's right.
It's such a good sleeve. It actually holds both copies of this album that I'm going to show. And I got it.
Where'd you
from
get that from?
Rob, I think you're familiar with. Have you heard of this place? It's out of Winnipeg. The sleeves are so good you can put 2 copies of the same album in it.
Are you talking about Vinyl Storage Solutions?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I heard they're a good company. VinylStorageSolutions.ca. Use promo code Northern10 to get 10% off your order. I got to start paying you, Joe.
Nope, that's okay. Just keep asking me back. That's all I ask.
Fair enough.
These guys put out a bunch of albums late, maybe the first one was late 70s. I can't remember, but this was certainly the biggest. It's a shame that their lead singer is gone because I think they might be a band from the 80s that could still be making music and making possibly relevant music these days. I'm not positive of that, but this is my favorite, and I've actually got 2 copies of it because I've got my copy and I've got my friend who passed away, my buddy Phil. I keep all of his albums, even if I've got a copy of it already. But this is just a solid album. Again, it got numerous plays in the bar that I worked at. Not necessarily some of them, like Never Tear You Apart was obviously like the slow dance song, but Devil Inside and Kick and Tiny Daggers, which was not necessarily a hit, but there's probably one of my favorites off of here. But you know, you go back to earlier stuff like Don't Change and like the album Shabu Shaba and all of that. But they really got their act together on this one. Really great use of saxophone in rock and roll music, unlike Bruce and those guys where the sax was a different bit of a thing. Obviously, Never Tear Us Apart, that sax solo, super haunting. Great video, I think shot in Prague or somewhere over in that part of the world. But again, Michael Hutchence decided he would strangle himself to death, trying to perform sexual acts on himself like a dumbass that he is. And I don't know. I mean, obviously it's 30 plus years, so whether they'd be making relevant music or not, but I thought they were talented enough at that point that they would, they're parallel. You can't compare them to U2. They were kind of out around the same time-ish or whatever, and arguably in the same kind of vein. And U2 is still out there doing things. I think if nothing else, if In Excess were not making relevant music, and they did try and replace Michael. They just never did. They did that reality show. They would be one of those resurgent bands that if they were able to tour still would be out there, and I think there would be a lot of people would be listening to them. But that's my favorite from them. But they put out a lot of really good music in the late 70s, and then they mostly through the 80s, and then Suicide Blonde. I don't know if that actually got into the 90s or not. I can't remember, but one of my favorites, In Excess, and the album Kick.
They did record one out after the reality show. They did record an album with JD Fortune. It wasn't very good, but they did it.
It wasn't, no. So I guess my point of whether they'd still be making music or not, I guess maybe if they had Michael around, I think maybe he was a lot of the writing on that. But yeah, one of my favorites, in Excess and Kick.
Another one of my I know somebody stories. So JD Fortune from Toronto, the lead singer that they fired because he had a wicked coke problem, he's out touring now, playing the In Excess hits.
Oh,
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's touring across Canada, and whatever. I don't have any respect for him necessarily, but I'm friends with his bass player and his drummer. I saw photos, promo for him doing his tour, and I'm looking at him going, I know that guy. Friends of mine that I've known for years. So, yeah. Anyway, In Excess. I got a few comments here to get caught up on, and then I'll make my turn here. We were somewhere about here. Rob, slightly off subject, but the Oasis horrible canceling tours in the UK because company has promoted them. I didn't hear about that. I did hear that there was about 50,000 tickets that were being canceled because they violated terms of sale because they were being sold on the aftermarket, but I'm not sure what that's about. But Dan says, I'm a Damn the Torpedoes guy. A few from the 80s, even Southern accents are good. I don't think Tom's put out really any bad albums. I think they're all pretty damn good.
yeah.
Ministry at its most brutal industrial goodness. Richard has seen them at least 6 times. Holy shit.
Great.
Motorhead made one of the best metal albums ever in 1980, Ace of Spades.
Don't argue that. Yeah.
I hope Brian shows some speed metal.
Yeah.
Dan says the band Satan Jokers from France were a speed metal band with some proggy mixed in ahead of their time in 85. JWG Moore. Everybody must be saving their hair metal albums for the rapid fire finale. Maybe.
Maybe.
John, it's not Joe. It's Ace. I legitimately got Ace from Kiss to join us tonight. He just happened to be staying over at Joe's house. Has Back in Black been shown? Yeah, it might. There's still enough to mention. There's still enough time to mention Slide It In. Huge In Excess album. Yes.
Yeah.
Always enjoyed that 90s hit Elegantly Wasted. I have that expensive version of Kick that came out this year. Did they reissue like some kind of deluxe edition?
Yeah, it might be an anniversary. I'm not sure. Ace's eyes aren't very good, and he can't get his glasses to stay on because it's sliding down the makeup. So I'll see if I can figure out, because I can't remember what year this was. No, I can't see. Yeah, there was some form of an anniversary, I believe. Yeah.
Gotcha. Richard says he doesn't think In Excess did a bad album. Simple Minds had a few great albums.
Yeah.
Another great show. Love it. Thanks, Chris. Good night, man. It's 2 a.m. there. Well, get some sleep, man. We'll catch you next time. Okay.
Thanks for joining us, as always. Yeah.
It's my turn. So I'm going to show. What am I going to show? I'll show this because I want to, and it's Canadian. I've talked about this guy a lot in recent weeks, but this is a fantastic album from 1987, I believe. Tom Cochrane's Victory Day. Notice this is autographed because I met one of my heroes a couple weeks ago. It's one of the most memorable musical experiences of my life. Fantastic album he did with Red Rider. The hits on here: Big League, Victory Day, What else is on here? I think those are the two big
Sinking Like
hits.
a Sunset? No, I can't remember if Sinking Like
No.
a Sunset's on there. Not in that one?
No.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I think those are the only. Oh, Sun Beats Down was a reasonable. I just love this record though. It's I think it's maybe the second best Red Rider album. I think the best one is As Far as Siam, I think would probably be the best. There you go. But yeah, love this. And not a nicer man have I met in my life. He was just a wonderful dude. So there you go. We got time for a speed round. It's 2 hours, but let's do a rapid fire lightning round. Show as many as you want, as quick as you want. So Brian,
All right, so as many as I want, as quick as I want, without saying too many things about them. How about
whatever
that?
you want to do.
Killing Joke, debut record from 1980. Love this. See, I chose this because following Ministry, I needed something also kind of with a hard edge. So Killing Joke. Many people know Love Like Blood, which isn't on here, but this is great. How about Brian Eno and David Byrne, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts? Kind of a weird electronic, Middle Eastern, African kind of thing with electronic music and samples, led to 2 court cases. By the way, if you get this version, the early version, you get the song Quran, which is not on later represses because of a complaint by the Islamic Council of Britain, I think. I almost showed this one earlier. Wire, the ideal copy, they're kind of returned to form after this is their 4th record. They had a 7 or 8 year break and came back with this. My favorite Wire song is on here called Ambitious. This is a really cool record. Sounds a bit 80s. Let me show you just one more because I don't want to take all the time. John Cale. I have to show John Cale because I talk about him all the time on my channel. Music for a New Society, which is, in my opinion, his masterpiece from, I can't remember when this came out, but in the 80s. I love this record. Very spare, minimal recording, kind of cool. I'll stop there because I have more, but someone else go on.
Richard says, Killing Joke, such a brilliant debut.
Agreed.
And Richard also said, Red Rider, yes. I had Don't Fight It album at one time and it vanished somewhere. Well, you got to find it. It's a good record. Okay, Daryl, rapid fire.
All right, Rob. I mean, I had to save the best for last. I mean, here's some commercial stuff.
There you go. Now we're talking.
Not all of it is, but some of it is. I couldn't go with the 80s without talking about Mike and the Mechanics, talking about kind of super groups. This is the one with Silent Running and All I Need Is a Miracle. Great album. Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry. We're Not Gonna Take It. My favorite song, Burn in Hell. I mean, just makes me laugh every time I watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure and they're sitting on the car for their cameo. Journey's Greatest Hits. With the exception of one song on there. I mean, that's a near perfect greatest hits album. Can't go wrong with that. Madonna's True Blue. What's on that one? Open Your Heart, Papa Don't Preach, Live to Tell. Those are amazing. Couldn't do this without doing my favorite Canadian band. Go with a 2 for here. I got both Glass Tiger 80s albums. And then
Glass Tiger is coming to my hometown to play the Performing Arts Center.
And I'm surprised this hasn't been mentioned yet, but maybe you'll do it in your rapid fire. But I had to go with the Joshua Tree to finish this off. That's an amazing album, start to finish. Mine's a reissue, but yeah, no, that's my rapid fire. One with the big guns last.
There you go, Joe.
Yeah, 2 of mine, you guys. Well, you didn't talk about the Red Rider album I pulled out, but yeah, that Twisted Sister. That's one of those that the first time you saw the video and all the stuff that goes around it and the whole bit at the beginning and everything, that just caught my attention right away and was really good. So I've only got 2 because, like I said, I had 4, but you guys kind of pulled 2 of them out of me. And yeah, I didn't pull out Tom Petty. I didn't pull out U2. I didn't pull out a lot of things that I like to talk about a lot of the time. So I think I've mixed it up a little bit tonight. And we've talked about this guy quite a bit, but I don't know if we've ever necessarily talked about this album specifically, and it's John Fogerty and Centerfield.
I almost pulled
this was massive in the 80s, early 80s, but really, really good. We talk about Zombie Zoo. We kind of talked a little bit about it. And Rock and Roll Girls was a hit, but it's one of those songs when you don't hear it for a while and you hear it, you go, holy shit, that's a great song. I really like that song. just a great album. It was nice to see that John came back, did a couple more solo albums afterwards or whatever. But man, if you get a chance to see John Fogerty, at least the last time I saw him, still puts on a hell of a show. And then, yeah, I can't go through one of these without mentioning these guys. Yeah, I don't need to say anything more, but Appetite, obviously, I've talked about Use Your Illusion. I don't think I show Appetite that much. Again, it's just one of those that everybody knows and is such a fantastic album and a not a genre definer, but definitely a line in the sand. There's before Appetite for Destruction and there's Appetite, and then there's after Appetite for Destruction, at least for me anyway. So my rapid fire is just those two.
Okay. One of my favorite 80s albums that I find I play a lot, Belladonna by Stevie Nicks from 1983, I think was when this came out. Fantastic. I mean, it's amazing because she had a lot of help on this. Tom Petty's all over this. The Heartbreakers are all over this. Don Henley's all over this. So a lot of heavy lifting done by some other folks. But this is amazing because Stop Dragging My Heart Around, the duet she does with Tom Petty. Leather and Lace, the duet she does with Don Henley. All After the Glitter Fades, Age of 17 was the big monster. This album, just an absolute classic. Shows that she could stand on her own outside of Fleetwood Mac. Yes, someone's going to show Back in Black because it's a damn near perfect record.
That was the start of the 80s and then the start of the 90s. Yeah. No, I was just going to say you got the start of the 80s and I had the start of the 90s because it's just into September of 1990. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to pull out.
This is Joe's favorite, Cuts Like a Knife. I could have picked Reckless, but I actually prefer Cuts Like a Knife over Reckless.
I agree with you.
This is a band that is not cool to like in the VC in the 80s, but this is my Aerosmith. I love Pump.
Amazing.
I know, but it's not the people out there. You can only like the Aerosmith from the 70s because the 80s stuff sucks. Fuck off. The stuff from the 80s is awesome.
Yeah.
I also have this on a picture disc too. And last but not least, the album for me that is most synonymous with the 80s, no, it's not Joshua Tree, is the much maligned Rattle and Hum. This is my favorite U2 album ever. Love it. There we go.
Good job.
Very nice.
A few comments here. Whereabouts are we? I think here. This guy who's seen Ministry 6 times has also seen Madonna twice. That's a juxtaposition. Glass Tiger and Jim Cuddy are playing the same venue but different stages here in Ottawa in November. Oh, I missed this here. Big fan of The Cure. No one has mentioned them. Yeah, it's funny no one mentioned The Cure.
I talk about them all the time on my channel, I think, so I didn't include them.
Rob, have I heard of Dick's Lumber and Dunbar Lumber out here in the Lower Mainland? No, I have not. They sound like lumber stores. I've been to the Lower Mainland many times, but I don't know. The Cure, big time for me. Awesome 80s show. Woohoo. On that note, we need to get back in the DeLorean. Come back to 2024. That was fun, guys. Thanks. I mean, the 80s is such a massive decade for music. We probably all could have pulled another 30 records. So,
yeah.
For sure.
That was fun. So, Brian, thank you for joining us, man. That was great.
Thanks for having me.
I'll do as I always do. I'll do what I always do at the end of one of these shows. You guys want to go around the horn real quick? Anything you want to mention about your channel? Daryl, what's cooking up at Northern Vinyl Guy?
So I dropped a video yesterday for Alex for his 1 year anniversary thing. 1984 was the year I went with. I don't know if any of you guys have done videos for him yet, but it's a pretty cool contest, that one there. Other than that, not too much going on. It was a couple of weeks since I posted my last video. Just this past weekend was crazy up here. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but in March, I'm actually going on a trip to Spain and Portugal with 9 students and another chaperone. So we did a a car wash fundraiser on the weekend. So it was 0 degrees and doing a car wash outside. But we had 3 kids come out of the 9, and each of them are getting $205 out of it. So there you go.
Well, that's
So
good.
just been a little bit busy, but other than that, I mean, I'm just keeping pretty chill up here. I mean, it's literally getting chill up here, and yeah, no, looking forward to Halloween tomorrow. I'm going to dress up with some platform shoes that I have in a 70s outfit. So
Nice.
that's the plan for the rest of the week.
Nice. I liked your contest video, and thanks for shouting out our Wednesday live chat too, by the way. Joe, what's happening at On a Vinyl?
Well, I'm not sure what Joe's got going on, but I've got 3 nights coming up in Poughkeepsie, New York. It's me and Cinderella. They're opening. And then we go to Bayonne. And I believe that Gertrude the Groupie is still a groupie in Bayonne. And I know she was a big Kiss fan back in the day. Roland, I don't think Roland the Roadie's around anymore, but Gertrude the Groupie is. So I've got 3 nights in Poughkeepsie, and then I've got the 1 night in Bayonne. And then after that, I'm just waiting for a phone call from Gene Simmons to come back and do something. But other than that, that's all I got. Joe said he's got some stuff coming up, but he didn't want to elaborate very much. So,
well, that's fair. Thanks, Ace. Glad you could take time out of your schedule to spend some time with us. Brian, what's cooking over at Embryonic Robot?
Let's see. Well, I posted videos recently. I think the next thing I'm going to do is the beer and vinyl contest entry. I picked my year. I was just struggling with how to do the video. I had an idea that didn't really work out. But anyway, so I'm hoping to do that Thursday or Friday, which doesn't give me much time. But that's the next thing, and then I take it on a day-by-day basis. So I don't know. Next week, who can say?
Fair enough. As for myself, I always post videos on Sunday mornings, but I was conspicuously absent this Sunday. Here's the thing. I made a video. I finished it, edited it. It was in the can. It was done. I thought it was a great video. I did a video about my bootleg collection. And then I didn't post it because technically bootlegs are illegal. And I had a dream that I got thrown in jail because I made a video about bootleg records. And it scared the shit out of me. So I didn't post it. Is anyone going to care if you talk about bootleg records on YouTube? Probably not. So I had this great video about bootlegs that's never going to see the light of day. But anyway, so other than that, our episode we did a month ago about Canadians talking about Canadian music is up on the podcast. That's all I got. Rob,
I have shown a couple bootlegs in my videos, and I'm still free. I'm a free man still, so I think you'll be okay.
Well, I'm not gonna tempt fate. I was just like, I had this dream that I was literally in jail with murderers because I talked about vinyl records that were bootlegs, and I'm just like, nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna.
I think if you were to show any Neil Young bootlegs, he comes over to your house and gets pissed off and gives you shit. But other than that, you might be okay. And Don Henley, don't show any Eagles bootlegs for God's sake.
I don't have it. Yeah, I do have some. But anyway, I didn't show them. But anyway, so that video is not going to happen. But other than that, I don't know. I should mention, for those watching, Brian knows about this, we are planning a Vinyl Community Southern Ontario meetup in November. Normally, it's Brian and Chris and myself. Usually are the only – Chris from Stylist Meets Vinyl. Usually the 3 of us get together in Toronto. But we're changing it up this year. We're going to get together in Hamilton, which I'm excited about. Because there's one street in Hamilton that has a whole string of record stores. I think that's still the plan, isn't it, Brian?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'll put the details in the community page for anyone that is in Southern Ontario or feels like making the trek to Southern Ontario. We'll have a little meet up and do some record shopping. So, and I too will get on Alex at Beer and Vinyls contest shortly. I just want to give it some thought because it's a great idea for a contest. Your favorite year in music. I don't want to enter his contest half-heartedly, so I want to invest some thought in it. So, I'm not sure what this upcoming week's video is going to be, but we'll figure something out. So. That's a wrap, everybody. For those that have watched, those that have stuck around, thank you very much. We really enjoy you spending a couple hours with us. Brian, thank you for being our guest. Daryl, Joe, or Ace, always a pleasure. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And we'll see everybody next week. Ciao,
All right.
everybody.
See you then.
So yeah.